live.
Is the old number 10 the operator?
I got some hummus and some grapes and a carrot. And we're here.
At the end of the day, we have a...
But at the end of the day, with 30p Lee.
Inappropriate behaviour.
Allegations that he's denied, these recent allegations.
Oh, fuck. What the fucking hell's happened to the telly? You're going the wrong way, son.
Sort of be able to go on and actually promote people.
They've got some hummus.
Have complaints about this sort of behaviour. Then we're in a bad place.
Are we actually live?
You know, and I feel I'm gutted for the Prime Minister because I think he's done a great job. And I'm a massive supporter of him. But at the end of the day, we can't allow this sort of stuff to go on.
So you say you're gutted. There was obviously a big decision. Did you have to really wrestle with your conscience over withdrawing your support from Boris Johnson?
Well, that's exactly the word, conscience. It is a matter of conscience because, like I say, I think he's been a good Prime Minister. You know,
30p Lee.
Through thick and thin, I think he's done a great job. At the end of the day, you know, we should live by our morals, and my moral compass is pretty spot on, I think. And when we have behaviour like we've had over the past week, it sends a wrong message to people who are working, people that are around MPs, people that socialise with MPs.
Here he comes, look! Fucko the clown.
Right, well, Lee Anderson, we're just showing pictures of the Prime Minister's convoy leaving for PMQs in just over 15 minutes' time. What do you imagine the atmosphere is going to be like behind Boris Johnson today?
I don't know, it's going to be strange because, like I say, I'm a big supporter of the Prime Minister.
I'm going to go and get some.
Letting him down, I feel like I'm letting my colleagues down, but at the end of the day, I've got to put the people of Ashfield first and the people of this country first, and more importantly, the people that work in this place who are here every single day. You know, we have to live and work by certain standards, and I think over the past few days we've fell short of that.
What would you like to hear from the Prime Minister today?
I'd like to hear him answering some questions in his dispatch box, but I don't know what the mood's going to be like. It's going to be subdued. I think Labour Party and the SNPs are going to be on the front foot. They're baying for blood like you lot have been for the past 2.5 years.
I nearly choked on my carrot.
Good theatre today. I feel for the Prime Minister, I really do. I like the man. I've got a huge amount of respect for the man, but I cannot let this pass.
You talked about your moral compass, and you talked about your conscience. There will be
30p
people
Lee.
who will feel that perhaps you should have thought about that post-Partygate, post some of the previous behaviour of the Prime Minister, that many people felt that he hadn't told the truth before, that he'd misled Parliament. So why the sudden finding of your moral compass, people might say?
Yeah, how come you suddenly just found it, Lee?
But this is totally different. This is a person who has been investigated in the past for inappropriate conduct. Number 10 was made aware of this. They denied it. Now they're saying they've forgotten, and I can't accept that.
All right. I mean, in terms of a replacement,
He forgot.
Is that something you've had time to consider? Because, as you say, you've been an ardent supporter of the Prime Minister up until literally this morning. So, who could you see as the next leader of the Conservative?
Wait till you see Keir Starmer.
Yeah, to be honest, we've had that conversation. There will be people obviously jockeying for position over the coming weeks. That's just a given. But we'll see. I'm not looking at it.
There's a big open goal. He's got it, and he's crushed it, and he's headed it over the bar.
I'll let you go, and you can go straight in. Lee Anderson, thank you very much. Sebastian Payne, what did you make of that?
Well, obviously, Lee Anderson, as I said, is probably one of the defenders of the Prime Minister.
Along with Jonathan Gullis
and time. He was one of those crucial bricks in the Red Wall that were the former Labour heartlands, that he won his seat Ashfield for the first time for the Conservative Party. And Boris Johnson's Praetorian Guard have been those Red Wall Tories, and the fact that they are going in some ways actually more significant.
Who is this hoity-toity?
Resignations, because some of those are not on the Prime Minister's wing of the Conservative Party, but it's also those MPs know that if Boris Johnson did try and decide to call a general election, those are the ones that are probably going to be the ones that lose their seats the first, because if you look at the polling and where the Prime Minister has lost the most popularity, it's actually in those Red Wall seats, not the more traditional sort of southern heartlands for the party.
Can you hear it? Do I need to turn it up a bit?
We talk about Boris Johnson deciding he might just go and call it. the Buckingham Palace might have something to say about that because the Fixed Term Parliament Act has been withdrawn.
Yes.
And we go back to a very old convention in 1951 called the Lascelles Convention. If you remember the Crown, it's the mustached man, Tommy Lascelles, who wrote this letter to the Times. It's an unwritten part of our constitution. And that sets 3 tests where the monarch could not would not allow an election to be called. One is if it would damage the economy. I think we could all agree an election.
We're going to talk about the economy in just a moment.
2, if there is another candidate who could command a majority in Parliament, which I think we agree there is. And 3, I'm trying to remember what the third one is now.
Right. Well, it's always good when you do 3 things. I'm afraid I can't help you with the third.
Absolutely. Yes, I remember the third one. The third one is if Parliament is still functioning. And I think in this instance, those 3 tests would be met. And in that situation, he couldn't call an election.
Right. Well, in fact, it was Jacob Rees-Mogg yesterday who actually cited the third one of those reasons. Now you've said it and reminded me of it, that actually it would just have to be Parliament. Yes, well, my memory is fading as it so happens. I said we would talk about the economy because, of course, importantly, Nadhim Zahawi is now the new Chancellor. He has been on the airwaves today, not only defending the Prime Minister, but also trying to set out what he may do in that post, because you may remember that Rishi Sunak, in his letter of resignation, cited more about a different approach towards the economy that he had with Boris Johnson, and that was why he couldn't stay. Let's just have a little listen to what Nadhim Zahawi said.
The Prime Minister wants to make sure that we have fiscal discipline. I share that focus with him. Because if we let inflation get out of control, it is deeply damaging for those very same people that we're trying to help today with that £37 billion of help over the next 12 months. But of course, I will be looking at where else can I make sure the economy remains competitive.
He's winging it. He's winging it. Winging it.
European neighbours and of course the rest of the world.
Hasn't got a fucking Danny LaRue, mate. He's winging it.
Nadhim Zahawi, then what did you make of the appointment? Because there was certainly a lot of talk last night that he was in conversations about becoming Chancellor. Others would have liked to have seen Liz Truss perhaps become Chancellor of the Exchequer. How long do you think he'll be there for?
I mean, who knows the answer to that? But you listen to him on the radio today, he was saying that he's determined to cut taxes. He was saying everything's on the table, possibly personal taxes, possibly business taxes. And Boris Johnson said last night to a group of Tory MPs, he thinks it would now be easier to cut taxes now Rishi Sunak's gone. I mean, that might be the case because Rishi Sunak was resisting tax cuts that he thought would be not the right time to do them because of the deficit. But the truth remains that the economy is still a basket case. We've still got the problems. I'm just not sure that we're going to see the government agree to a massive increase in borrowing to commit to tax cuts, which are just going to look very desperate right now.
Right, well, let's have a look at the BBC News headline. John, you said the economy is a basket case. Certainly the economic backdrop is worsening. The pound slides to 2-year low against the dollar, as we know predictions of inflation going up to 11%. But today also sees 30 million workers will see a pay rise because they're going to be able to earn more before paying national insurance contributions as the tax threshold is raised. Does it make any difference about who is Chancellor at this particular moment? Or is the talk of tax cuts music to your ears, Miriam?
Oh, well, I think it could make a difference, actually, providing that the government survives and he is in place.
Right, before we... before we get into the big showdown between Keir Starmer and Fucko the Clown, Boris Johnson, our Churchill, our Prime Minister, the worst Prime Minister ever. Cost of living crisis, child poverty, Nana sitting in a nappy because we can't afford social care. While they're all licking it. Who's that hoity-toity on there? They're all, look at the hoity-toities. Apart from Jess. Like these other ones here, they're all the hoity-toity. What are they doing on there? Supporting fucking Boris. Do you know what I mean? The state of this country. We got the Brexit abyss. We're heading towards like Armageddon, mate. And these people here, what does Zahawi mean for the economy? Don't know. Ask his horses. Ask his fucking horses. They're all out in the... Sorry, that was very rude. apologise for my behaviour. It was the carrot sticks and the hummus. Oh, I've got a bit of a pain in my belly. I think I rushed my lunch. Brunch. Is it brunch? Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, how long to go? We've got another 9 minutes of fucking waffle. Who see the papers this morning? Let's have a quick look at the newspapers. I'll talk you through it. Let me talk you through it. Hold on, wait. No, get off of that. You don't want to see that. What was it? What was it? Everyone's like, what? I want to see what? Right. Front page of the Metro this morning is Boris is a wanker. The Daily Bozo. Here, look, this is coming up in a minute. Hell is empty. You know, I've got like a zine out called Boris, Bye Bye Boris. You should go and have a look at it. This was, what about the letter that the guy, look, on the front page of the Daily Vomit, they're calling him a grease piglet. And I was talking about like that translucent brown grease, and you're rubbing it onto a little piglet. What's that? Anyway, rubbing the grease onto a little piglet. It's slippery. A slippery little piglet. And what's the brink? So, I looked up the etymology of the word brink. Who knows where it's from? Brr. It's a brr. So it's like obviously Northern European. It's actually Scandinavian. The brink is like the edge, and it could be a positive or it could be a negative. But it's like this kind of area where someone is standing just before they go into the negative or the positive, on the brink of success, on the brink of achieving, on the brink of disaster. So it's kind of like when you just, it's like the edge, on the edge, but they like the brr better. It sounds better. Johnson on the brink. Johnson hanging by a thread as Sunak and Javid walk out. Like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid there. They're going out. They're coming back together. Financial Times on the brink. He works for the Financial Times, this fella here at the end. She's a big Boris fan. He's got a blue jacket on today. And this is the Daily Basket case. Boris fighting on. Declaring, I'm now free to... Now he's fucking gone. It's all his fault. Back on the brink in The Guardian. There's a Metro endgame going, Mirror finally. And it was Broken Bottle Boy who said, hearing that John T. Fuckwad has resigned as Parliamentary Under Secretary for Noncing. Oliver Bechamel Quinn. It's curtains for Bozo. It's quite interesting here because they've actually listed Boris Johnson was told 5 times about Crenshaw. 5 fucking times. During the first reshuffle, 2019, told when FCDO investigation started, told when FCDO investigation concluded, told again at reshuffle, told by propriety and ethics team. 5 times he got told. 5 times. 5 times. Can you even imagine? And he turned around and he went, oh, I forgot about that. Fucking Boris Johnson, I forgot about that. I'm going to have a little look. Let's have a little look. We're having a little look. And try and find a picture of the fella. Oh, look. I made some lemon biscotti. So you have to cook. I cook them 3 times. You cook the whole thing together, and you chop it up into slices. Then you recook them. You grate some lemon into them. Lemon biscotti, and they should be crunchy. They should be hard. So when you, oh God, I love a coffee. What we got? What time? I ain't got time for coffee. No time for coffee. Anyway, we are very close. I've also got I'm preparing the anti-Tory calendar for 2023. It takes about 6 weeks to do. I'm painting the images now as we speak. What's happening? Are we going over?
This afternoon. So once Boris Johnson gets through Prime Minister's questions, not just from the Labour leader Keir Starmer, but also questions from his own side and other opposition benches, we might be able to just dip into the chamber. I can see there Simon Hart standing up taking questions. It is filling up.
Fill it up.
The Prime Minister isn't there. Jess Phillips assures me her eyesight is better than mine. I can't quite see from here. We are also expecting that resignation statement from Sajid Javid. It was, we thought,
that big
going
blonde
to
mop
come
there?
pretty swiftly after PMQs. We understand there is going to be a ministerial statement, hopefully, after Prime Minister's questions about the accession calls for Finland and Sweden to NATO. And then there is, as I say, this liaison committee. Senior MPs, heads of select committees, grilling the Prime Minister. At this point, it's good time to talk to Vicky Young, BBC's deputy political editor. Vicky, this tweet has appeared in front of me from journalist Jason Groves. Tory source says 1922 committee, that is the backbench committee of Conservative MPs. The head of
Look, what do you think about that? Could start as soon as Monday.
Plans for leadership hustings to start as soon as Monday would allow time to complete runoff before the recess, with Tory members voting on the final two in August, but would require the Prime Minister to be gone this week. What do you make of
out
that?
this week.
I mean, it sounds plausible. I haven't had that sourced myself, but speaking to people...
He's going to try and hang on now, because if he hangs on this
yesterday,
week...
it's clear that they felt things were moving pretty swiftly. Now, what they do, just to explain to people, of course, is they have to...
The 1922 committee sounds secret. It's not. They all get in a room and they're all like... hoity-toity, and they say, oh, fucking hell, he's been like £1,000. They were saying that they're like, whether Boris and Carrie are like, whether they can get the wallpaper off without making too much of a mess. Oh, this is what happens. You see what happens when you vote for clowns? You get a fucking circus. It's just an absolute circus. We'll put our feet. Oh, I've got a pain in my belly now. I think I ate my lunch too quick. I was rushing. See what happens. I cycled all the way down to Tesco's as well to go and get it. And I cycled all the way back up. And there's a bit of a hill. It's like a gradient, like coming back like that. I was put into the lowest gear possible. I was really struggling. Didn't the cars go really fast around you when you're riding your bike? I only really ride in the summertime. I can't really ride in the winter.
Going to start since we haven't seen Boris Johnson actually arrive in the chamber. But your response to
so that wasn't him.
Jason Groves.
Well, I think that
he's from the Daily Vomit. He's from the Daily Mail.
As soon as they can. And just speaking to people a week ago, Tory MPs were saying...
Looking a bit casual there, you know. Where's your fucking tie? Do you know what I mean? If he thinks he's British, where's his tie?
Those same people, when I was texting them last night, they were saying that all of those concerns had suddenly gone away, that they were quite happy to see the rules change and they wanted it done as soon as possible.
We also have a precedent with this with Theresa May, who had a confidence vote at the end of 2018, and everyone said she was safe for a year, but then the fact was, after she lost those three big Brexit votes, Graham Brady, who's the chair of the 1922
let me have a quick look.
went over and said, look, the game is up, we can change the rules and challenge you, or you can leave in a dignified way. And, you know, one Tory I spoke to today said that, you know, Graham Brady may visit Boris Johnson with the...
Go and have a word with him. Graham Brady.
And if knowing Boris Johnson, he would drink the whiskey and then metaphorically shoot Graham Brady, as opposed to doing what might be seen as the right way out of this. But I think the Prime Minister will cling on. You know, there's one cabinet minister...
Define Boris, I'll smash on.
In the window frames of Downing Street, and he will have to be dragged out. So the committee might try and do whatever it wants, but he's not going to go away quietly.
It sounds very painful. Vicky, somebody who is in the chamber already is Keir Starmer. Prime Minister. Here it goes.
Here he goes. Here he goes. We're going live. Here he is. Look, top dog.
Increasing national insurance thresholds to make tax lower.
Big dog.
Tax burden easier. These changes will benefit
Big
30
dog.
million people across the UK. And I'm pleased to say that two of those people are seated here in the public gallery today. Mandy Banfield and Alan Calzari, a typical worker, will now save £330 per year, with 70% of employees better off as a result. That is real money.
It's like
real
nothing's
people.
happening.
And Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the House will also join me in wishing the best of luck to England and Northern Ireland, who are competing in the UEFA Women's Euro 2022 tournament, which starts today, and I'm sure they will both make the nation proud. This morning, Mr. Speaker, I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition I expect I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, sir. Last week we launched a new approach to combating knife crime in Milton Keynes, which means increased use of stop and search. It means tougher charging and custody, tougher sentencing, faster youth diversion, and more work with parents and communities. Would the Prime Minister agree with me that if you carry a knife in Milton Keynes, you should expect to end up behind bars?
Yes, I thank my honourable friend what he's doing to campaign for tougher sentences in Milton. He's doing a campaign against knife crime, and as a result of what the Conservatives.
Oh my God, Nadine Dorries is going to be the Prime Minister.
Involving a knife, including threatening with a knife or a second offence of possession, face a minimum sentence of 6 months.
Who's that there?
Mr. Speaker.
New phone. Hello? New phone. Who's that?
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Go on, Keith! Go on, Keith! Get him! Get him!
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is the start of the Women's Euros, and I know the whole House will wish the Lionesses the very best of luck in bringing football
over the bar. He had an open goal. He headed it over the bar.
Also, Mr. Speaker,
what about Northern Ireland?
It's also been 40 years since the death of Terence Higgins. Terence worked at Hansard by day and Heaven by night before he sadly died of AIDS. The Labour Party and the Terence Higgins Trust are committed to ending new cases of HIV by 2030. Together we can. Mr. Speaker, last week a government minister was accused of sexually assaulting a young man. I want to quote the victim's account. He says, "He grabbed my arse and then he slowly moved his hand down in front of my groin. I froze." I accept that's not easy listening, but it's a reminder to all those propping up this Prime Minister just how serious the situation is. He knew the accused minister had previously committed.
He knew 5 times.
But he promoted him.
Promoted him.
Power anyway.
Oh, fucking.
Why?
Why?
That individual, the old member for Tamworth, no longer has the Conservative whip. He no longer has a job. He is no longer. As soon as I was made aware of the allegation that he is just
read out,
Mr. Speaker, and the complaint that was made, he lost his status as a Conservative MP, and he's now the subject, Mr. Speaker, of an independent investigation.
No, I can't talk about it.
And grievances panel.
Not allowed
And
to.
that is entirely right. I want to say to him, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to him that I abhor bullying and abuse of power anywhere in Parliament, in this party or in any other party.
Keir Starmer.
None of that explains why he promoted him in the first place. And we've heard it all before. We know who he really is. Before he was found out, he's reported to have said he's handsy. That's the problem. Pincher by name, pincher by nature. Now, has the Prime Minister ever said words to that effect? And I'm not asking for bluster and half-truth. We've all had enough of that. Yes or no?
Did he say it?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to trivialise what
Oh.
happened. Yes, Mr. Speaker, Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm not, because there's very serious complaints have been raised against the members.
I can't talk
of
about
and
it
they
at the
have been,
moment.
Investigated, Mr. Speaker. It is true that a complaint was raised when he was in the Foreign Office and the matter was resolved. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, Mr. Speaker, that it was raised with me. I greatly regret that he continued in office, and I've said that. I have said that before, Mr. Speaker. I have said that before.
As he just standing there.
It is now
Can you all hear this?
of
Shall I turn it up a bit?
Independent investigation, and that is the right thing, Mr. Speaker. Frankly, I think the people of this country would like also to hear. They would like also to hear about other jobs that are held by people in this country. Not least the 500,000 people who got off welfare into work in the last 6 months alone.
He's
Mr.
lost
Speaker.
it. He's lost
Those are
it.
things that are making differences to the lives of people up and down the country. And I'm
Lost
proud.
it. Lost.
No denial. And he says the matter was resolved when he means it was upheld. And they're all sitting there as if this is normal behaviour. When that young man reported his attack to a government whip, she asked him if he was gay. When he said that he was, she replied, "That doesn't make it straightforward." That comment will sicken anyone who's experienced sexual assault and then been made to feel like they somehow asked for it, or who worry that prejudice means their complaint won't be taken seriously. Will he apologise for those disgraceful comments on behalf of his government?
Mr. Speaker, I've already said that I regret very much that the member for Tamworth continued to hold office after the complaint was made against him in the Foreign Office, and it was resolved.
Look at him over there, Rob and Joey. Look, Nadine. And I don't know who that is. Who's that?
That he would not change. However, when it came to the Friday of last week, and when I was given the information that he's read out about the complaint that was made against the honourable member, I acted immediately, Mr. Speaker. I took the whip away from him, and we will not tolerate that kind of behaviour in this or any other party, Mr. Speaker. And what we also want to do is to help people up and down the country with the things that also matter to them, like cutting their taxes, Mr. Speaker, by £330.
What's he on about? What's he on about? It's a disgrace.
Doesn't that just sum him up? Awful behaviour, unacceptable in any walk of life. It's there for all to see, but he ignores it. It was the same when his ally was on the tape from the lobbyists. It was the same when his Home Secretary was bullying staff. It was the same when taxpayers' money was being abused. And it was the same when he and his mates parted their way through lockdown. Anyone quitting now, after defending all that, hasn't got a shred of integrity. Mr. Speaker, isn't this the first recorded case of the sinking ships fleeing the rat?
The sinking ship fleeing the rats.
He talks about
Go!
Hear what he's got to say about him, Mr. Speaker. He talks about integrity, and he wanted to install the member for Islington North into number 10, Mr. Speaker. That's what he wanted to do. Imagine what our country and what the world would be like now. He talks about integrity. He voted 48 times to overturn the will of the British people and take us back into the European Union. And by the way, listening to his muddled speech the other day, that is exactly what he would do again. Mr. Speaker, he talks about integrity, but Mr. Speaker, he has voted time and time again against sanctions on criminals that would put them behind bars. This is the government that is tough on... I'm sorry, he talks about integrity. He is himself facing a criminal investigation, Mr. Speaker, which he asked me to resign.
Keir Starmer.
Unbelievable.
What a pathetic spectacle. The dying act of his political career is to parrot that nonsense. And as for those who are left, only in office because no one else is prepared to debase themselves any longer, the charge of the lightweight brigade.
In charge.
Have some self-respect.
Look at him. Look
Mr.
at him.
Speaker, for a weeks.
Who's left?
He's
Who's in
been
it?
defending his decision to promote a sexual predator. Every day, the lines he's forced them to take have been untrue. First, that he was unaware of any allegation. Untrue. Then, he was unaware of any specific allegation. Untrue. Then he was unaware of any serious specific allegation. And now he wants them to go out and say that he simply forgot that his whip was a sexual predator. Anyone with anything about them would be long gone from his front bench. In the middle of a crisis, doesn't the country deserve better than a Z-list cast of nodding dogs?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's exactly when times are tough and when the country faces pressures on the economy and pressures on their budgets, Mr. Speaker, and when we had the biggest war in Europe for 80 years, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly the moment that you'd expect a government to continue with its work, not to walk away, Mr. Speaker, and to get on with our job and to focus on the things that matter to the people of this country. And so we're not only cutting taxes today, Mr. Speaker, we're putting £1,200 into every one of the 8 million most vulnerable households in the country, Mr. Speaker, thanks to the strength of our economy and thanks to the decisions that we took, Mr. Speaker, which he opposed at the time.
Here's Sama. The only thing he's delivering is chaos. I started this session with a quote from the young victim in all this, how he froze when he was attacked. When I was prosecuting rapists, I heard that from victims all the time. Victims said they froze because it's not about sex, it's about power. And the power the disgraced government minister had was handed to him by that Prime Minister. And he's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible. So it's no longer a case about swapping the person at the top. Isn't it clear? The only way the country can get the
general election. General election.
A lot of them.
Get rid of them all. Get a general election. That's what he's calling for.
Mr. Speaker, the difference...
More. They're shouting more.
We've got to get through Prime Minister's questions. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the difference between this government and that opposition is we have a plan and they do not. And we're getting on. They want to focus on this type of issue, Mr. Speaker. We're going to get on with our jobs. We're going to control prices, Mr. Speaker, by not giving in to the union barons. They're paid by the union barons, and they're proud of it. We were the first European country to arm the Ukrainians, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud of that. And those
like
guys,
a vein, like a massive fucking vein, like his head's gonna fucking explode. Have you seen it?
8 of them,
the big
including the
fucking
shadow
vein.
foreign secretary, the shadow deputy leader, and 6 others.
What's he wobbling on about now? Sling your fucking hook. Go on.
Today we are cutting taxes.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks to the strength of our economy.
You're all going bye, Boris. Have you seen my zine?
And we are going to continue to deliver on the mandate I was given.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On Monday night, the Northern Ireland Legacy Bill reached its 3rd reading.
This is the guy who I had in my taxi once.
The end of the journey, a long
he said he was going to,
journey
like, if they blew up the world,
the
nuclear bombs,
Afghanistan,
he was into
and
it.
now Northern Ireland is
nuclear
not rewritten by those who
bombs.
seek only to
Everyone
line
would be
their
dead.
own pockets.
Said,
But
yeah.
would the Prime Minister agree with me that never again can we allow such a gulf to open up between this place and those who serve? Never again must they be made to feel like we are not on their side. And will he redouble his commitment to make sure this is the best country in the world, to serve in the military and be a veteran all their family?
This is the best country in the world.
Thank you very much. I thank him for all the work that he's done for veterans and continues to do. This bill will give veterans the certainty.
I wonder what the guy from SNP, because there's a similar thing going on with the SNP at the moment. I wonder what he's going to say.
But also at the same time making sure that families can get the answers they need about what happens.
Is he going to talk about something?
We now come to the leader of the SNP,
Listen,
Ian Blackford.
I'll switch after Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I give every best wish to the England and Northern Ireland ladies football team as they approach the Euro Championships? There's nothing better than seeing your teams in these finals. Can we also commemorate the passing 40 years ago of Terence Higgins and all those that have died from AIDS and seven? I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, the whole House will want to join with me in passing condolences to the family and friends of the Scottish football goalkeeping legend, Andy Gorham, who sadly passed far too early last weekend. He will long live in the memory of the best goalkeeper that many of us have seen. Mr. Speaker, it's easy to forget that only 10 days ago, the Prime Minister was dreaming of a third term. Mr. Speaker, you know, it's often said that a week is a long time in politics, but it turns out that 10 days is truly a lifetime. Because, let's face it, it's a minor miracle that the Prime Minister has even made it through to Prime Minister's questions, and he really ought to see the faces behind him, because, Prime Minister, it really is over. The Prime Minister is desperately clinging on to his own fantasy, but the public can't afford to put up with this farce of a government.
He's not going to say anything about it, is
Today, we should be talking about the Tory cost of living crisis, soaring inflation, and the growing cost of Brexit. But instead, it's always about him. How many more ministers need to quit before he finally picks up his pen and writes his own resignation letter? Perhaps that's what he's doing now.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, I was just jotting down some notes on his question, which I thought was excellent when he was talking about the economy. Because that is the issue that is the country faces, and that is where this government is introducing, I think, the most important solution. Helping countries, helping families up and down the country with £1,200 going into their bank accounts right now, cutting taxes for 30 million people, £330 tax cut, and helping 500,000 people into work through the Way to Work scheme. That is a fantastic thing to be getting on and doing. That is the priority of this government, and that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm glad he likes it.
Ian Blackford.
My goodness. Nothing to see, we should all move on if we live in the world of the Prime Minister. You know, a few weeks ago I compared the Prime Minister to Monty Python's Black Knight. Actually, turns out I was wrong. He's actually the dead parrot. Whether he knows it or not, he's now an ex-Prime Minister. But he will leave behind two deeply damaging legacies. I hope the dishonesty of his leadership follows him out of the Downing Street door. But the other legacy is that of Brexit. And that will stay.
Not mentioned it,
because I'm sad to say that the Labour Party now fully supports Mr. Speaker, Scotland wants a different future, not just a different Prime Minister. So if the Prime Minister won't resign, will he call a general election and allow Scotland the choice of an independent future,
general election,
free from the control of Westminster?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I noticed that his remark that the Labour Party had given up on returning to the European Union was not greeted with rapture by the benches opposite, and that's because it's not true. They want to go back in just as he does. I think that is a terrible mistake. It would be anti-democratic, Mr. Speaker. And as for the referendum that he wants, well, we had one of them, as I told him before.
What do you think of that then? Oh, fucking hell, I've got a splitting headache. Top Dog, how do you think Top Dog done? He's fucking... I vote for fucking Scottish independence. Get fucking rid of the Tories. Are they gonna... Do you want to stay for any more questions, or just fuck off now?
Or if I felt, for instance, that we're being frustrated in our desire to support the Ukrainian people.
Oh, fucking hell. Right, listen, right, I'm fucking off. I've had enough of this shit. He just sat there and he just like deflected everything. He's a goner. Leave it on, Mark. Oh, okay, for fuck's sake, okay.
There you have it, Mr. Speaker. Once again, the Prime Minister, he puts political survival before public duty.
Yeah.
But people can see, even if he goes, it's not an if, it's a when, isn't it? Yeah. The same Westminster arrogance will continue to dictate our futures in Wales. Does he want a medal for being the best recruiting sergeant for independence we could wish for?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, everywhere I look around the United Kingdom, I had a great talk with Mark Drakeford the other day, as well as talking to Nicola Sturgeon. I see the bonds of our union being strengthened the whole time, and I'm confident that they will continue to do so.
Link Drummond!
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's town centre and levelling up funds have been very successful around the country, but there are a few town centres, like Waterlooville in Mearn Valley, that are in desperate straits and haven't managed to get any funding, get a scheme into the present.
That's the new one I done today. Look, that's the front page of the Tory Times of London.
Available to help
Do you like it? Do you like it?
Become fit for the 21st century and survive the post-pandemic.
I thank my honourable friend, and she's a great champion for Mearn Valley, and I will make sure that she gets a meeting with the Minister for Levelling Up at the earliest opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The public clearly thinks that this government has lost the plot over the cost of living crisis. The Prime Minister may be aware that the average salary for a nurse is £36,000. For a primary teacher, it is £38,000. They, and indeed working...
Well, I've got to go.
...are struggling to pay their rents.
Can't listen to any more of this shit. I never listen to it past this.
£150,000 mortgage on a new home. Can he tell this House how he could have...